Hello. So we are going to finish the story of A Snake in the House. We're going to read the last section, which is a surprise at the meeting. And so remember, as we're reading this, there are some things I want you to be keeping in mind. One of those is the cause and effect relationships. So think about why something is happening. So the effect is what's happening. Somebody is saying something or somebody's doing something, and we want to think of the cause for that. What is causing them to act that way or to say that thing? So that's cause and effect relationships. We're also going to be making some predictions. And remember, when you make predictions while you're reading, you are helping your brain to pay better attention to what the words say. And when you make predictions, whether you're right or wrong, that helps your brain engage in what you're reading. So it's always a very good skill for you to practice while you're reading something. And then lastly, we want to see if we can tell what a character is feeling by what they say and what they do. Okay, so those are three things that we're going to be working on today. So just like yesterday, I'm going to read with you a few pages, and then I'm going to have you finish by yourself. And we are going to be reading page 71 all the way to 77. Even though the story ends on 76, I want you to read page 77 too and answer those questions just in your head. Okay? All right, so page 71. Hopefully, you have your books ready to go. If not, pause me. All right, page 71. A surprise at the meeting. A few days later, Mrs. Perroni had a ladies' meeting at her house. She rushed around all day preparing for it. Around 3:45, she called Lisa. "Have you given Barney his bath yet?" "Not yet," she answered. "Why?" "Why? Because I'm having a meeting at 4 today. Hurry up and get Barney out of the way." All right, what would cause Mrs. Perroni to say that? Why does she want Barney out of the way? So think about the cause of that. Do you think maybe she doesn't want the people at her meeting to see Barney? Do you think because she's a little bit afraid of snakes, she just doesn't want it around while she's having all of that company? All right, so we can also get a clue because up in that very first paragraph in the second sentence, do you see where it says she rushed around all day preparing for it? It seems like this meeting is a big deal for her, and she does not want Barney around for that. Okay, so let's continue where Lisa says, "Yes, ma'am." "Yes, ma'am." Lisa hurried to the garage to get Barney. She had Barney wrapped around her shoulders and had just reached the kitchen door when the first car drove up. Lisa hurried inside and raced upstairs to the bathroom. "Whew," she said to Barney as she closed the door. "That was close." So what do you think would happen if if the people from the first car walked in and they saw Barney? What do you think would happen? Just imagine if you had a snake wrapped around your shoulders and company came. Would it be kind of a big deal to the company? Probably. Okay, so let's move on to page 72. Okay, now we're getting to another problem that Lisa has. So watch for that problem. Soon Barney was floating happily in lukewarm water. Okay, let's stop and think about that. What the effect is that Barney is floating in lukewarm water. Think back to yesterday, and can you think of the cause for that? Do you remember why he's supposed to be having a bath? Okay, I hope you remembered that he had mites, and the vet said to give Barney a bath to kill off the mites, and then have to keep doing it to keep off get the eggs off, right? Okay, so Barney was floating happily in lukewarm water, his head safely in Lisa's hand. Lisa stroked his head and talked softly to him. It was after 4 when Barney was bathed and dried. "Now, how am I going to get you back downstairs?" Lisa asked thoughtfully. Does that sound like a problem that she needs to solve? Her mom really doesn't want her to walk through the house with that snake on her. She's very concerned about what the people will think, the people at her meeting. So now, how am I going to get you back downstairs?" Lisa asked thoughtfully. "The ladies are all in the living room." Barney coiled happily around the clothes hamper. Do you guys know what a clothes hamper is? It's a container to put the dirty clothes in. Okay, so he's coiling around the clothes hamper. Can you picture that in your head? You aren't the easiest thing to hide, Lisa added. Barney rubbed his hand against the top of the... Sorry. Barney rubbed his head against the top of the wicker hamper. Lisa chuckled. All right, she opened the top of the hamper. Get in. Barney slithered over the top of the hamper and disappeared into the clothes. Do you like the word the author used instead of Barney moved over the top of the hamper or Barney went into the top of the hamper? I love that she used the word slithered. That just is very descriptive of how a snake moves, isn't it? So Barney slithered over the top of the hamper and disappeared into the clothes. Lisa opened the door and peeked over the railing. The room was full of ladies. Lisa sighed and went back to the bathroom. She opened the hamper. Barney was coiled up in the clothes. Lisa closed the lid and sat down. She had to think of a way to get Barney out to the garage. What do you think? Are you making a prediction on what she might do or what you might do if you were in that same situation? That engages your brain, so you should be thinking about that. Okay, let's continue. I could take the hamper to the garage, she thought. Barney is asleep and the hamper doesn't weigh much. Sure, it'll work. Okay, so what is she going to do? What is her plan? That's right, she's going to take the hamper with the snake in it to the garage, and then that won't draw so much attention. She picked up the hamper and opened the door. Halfway down the stairs, she looked across the room and saw her mother's face. Lisa moved her mouth without actually speaking. Have you guys ever done that? Mouthed something to someone without any words coming by? Mrs. Perroni nodded and stayed where she was. She watched every step Lisa made. She looked like she was holding her breath. Lisa stepped off the last stair and started across the wooden floor. The hamper wasn't too heavy, but it was more awkward to carry than she had expected. She was doing fine, though, until Mrs. Perkins looked up and saw Mrs. Perroni's face. Anna, she exclaimed, whatever is the matter? At that moment, Lisa stepped on a throw rug. The rug slipped and Lisa sprawled on the floor. Sprawled is another good descriptive word. What do you think? What picture is in your head when you hear that she was sprawled on the floor? Sounds to me like she's kind of spread out on the floor in an uncomfortable position. And then the hamper slid right into the middle of the room. I'll get it, Lisa yelled as several ladies got up to help. She was too late. 3 feet of shaken boa constrictor flowed from the overturned hamper and slithered across the floor. Okay, so we've got another problem that needs to be solved. This is quite the conflict for Lisa. So make some predictions on what's going to happen and how it's all going to turn out. Okay, and after you've made your prediction, and after you've watched the rest of the video, I want you to read page 74 all the way to 77. And I would like for you to read some of the dialogue on page 74 and 75. Read it out loud and practice getting that really good expression in. And then for our Google Hangout today, I'd like to discuss that and hear some of your reading to see if you can get that excitement in your voice as you practice this dialogue. Okay, so go all the way to page 77. And there are 3 questions there that I just want you to ask yourself. You do not have to turn this in. You don't have to write down your answers or type them or anything like that. Just answer them in your head, and then we'll discuss that in the Google Hangout. And then look at all of those vocabulary words. I didn't really introduce those at the beginning of the story because I felt like you had a pretty good, or you would have a pretty good handle on those. But if there are any of those that you didn't understand, see if you can find it back in the story and see if you can understand from the context clues. Okay? All right, so you are going to read page 74 to 77 and practice reading the dialogue with good expression and answer the questions in your head on page 77. And then we are going to work on a workbook page today, and I will need a photo sent in. So we're working on the front side with cause and effect. This is page 153 in your workbook. Cause and effect. And boys and girls, what's easiest for me, and maybe this will be easiest for you too, is I look at the effect first, and then I think, why is that happening? What is causing that to happen? So I like to look at the effect first and then find a cause that is the reason why this is happening. Okay, so you are going to match a letter with one of these causes. Okay, same thing down here. You're going to match one of these causes or one of these effects with one of these causes. So you just put the letter on the lines here. Okay, and then I want you to look at page 154, the back side. We're just going to put some of the events in order, okay, on this part. This is putting the events in order. Now, I want you to notice that it says first right here, but let's think about that if that's really the first event in the story. So I want you to pay attention. That is usually a clue word that something's going first, but just check, okay? Check all your sentences. We always read them first. So I'll just give you a clue. This is not the first event in these story ideas, okay? So think carefully through those. Make sure you read all of them first, then find the very first event. And it always helps if you read something and say, that was kind of in the middle of the story. And you can put an M for middle, a B for beginning, E for end. Remember how we've done that in class. Okay, and then section C, this is not putting things in order. Read the instructions really carefully. It says put an X before the sentences that show that Mrs. Peroni is changing her mind about Barney. So remember yesterday I asked you to make a prediction if Mrs. Peroni was changing her mind. And it seems maybe she is. After you read the end of the story, you'll have a better idea of that. So you're going to put an X before the sentences that show that Mrs. Peroni is changing her mind, okay? And if it's not evidence for that, you're going to just leave it blank, okay? All right, so that is your assignment for today. I look forward to talking about this story in Google Hangouts today. See you later.